who have pre-ordered said games.
Look at Duke Nukem. The thing is, though, if you pre-ordered the game over 10 years ago, they still kept your pre-order. As long as your name, as long as you still have the receipt.
All right, you know how to use my mouse pad, right?
Just like this.
And clicking. No. So, are you ready?
Is it recording me?
Hold on. Let me see if it's got your face. It should have your face. Hopefully, it's got you in here. All right, go on. Okay. Hey guys. I mean, Kuni's. Start over. Hey guys. Kuni's gonna see if he can survive a zombie apocalypse.
I took a shower and grabbed a quick cup of coffee before heading out of the front door and waving goodbye to my loving wife. I jumped on board the bus, sat down, turned on my MP3 player, and promptly entered my usual daydream state. I finally arrived at my office building, headed up the 10th floor, and sat down at my desk to see a huge pile of paperwork. I sighed and got started.
Next.
The scream coming from down the hall broke my
Just said
concentration.
next. Oh.
I considered going to see what it was, but the thought quickly passed. Probably just another hysterical secretary overreacting to a spider. Just as I started getting back to work, something else grabbed my attention. I peered out the window into the street below, and to my astonishment, saw a scene of utter chaos. People fighting, even killing each other for seemingly no reason. By this time, some of my coworkers had gotten up from their desks and joined me in staring out the window.
So, the options, read them.
Turn on the radio built into my cell phone. Go down the hall and look at the TV in the common room. Sit back down and continue my work. Go grab another cup of coffee. What would I do?
Well, I'll definitely tell you the last two are stupid.
I hate coffee. I'm lazy, so I ain't choosing the last two. I don't have a cell phone, so I guess I'll go down and look at the TV.
The common room was crowded with coworkers, and I could barely see or hear anything with all the commotion. I only managed to pick out the phrases psychovirus and destroy the brain.
Next.
You learned something! Congratulations!
At this point, I felt myself entering a state of mild shock. It was obvious that whatever was going on was serious, and that a significant percentage of the population were going to be killed or wounded over the course of the next few days.
We can edit that out.
My thoughts quickly turned to my wife. Was she okay? What if these maniacs were near our home?
Let's see. Take out my cell phone and call my wife. Don't call, just go home and see if she's okay. You neither, stay at the office. But me, I would take it safe and I'd call.
I dialed the number, but immediately got an error tone. I tried several more times before giving up. I was annoyed with myself for wasting time. I should have known the phones would be overwhelmed. I then decided that I would go home and make sure that my wife was okay.
Oh, there were no options?
I began to make my way through a series of corridors that lead to the elevator. On my way, I noticed a struggle out of the corner of my eye. I turned to see a disfigured man frantically clawing at and biting a young woman's leg. Blood was already pouring from her multiple wounds. The woman cried out for me to help her.
So, what are the options?
Attack the crazed man, try to find someone to help, call 911, leave the woman to her doom.
What are you picking?
The audience knows, just looking at my face.
Hallway, ignoring the woman's cries for help. She would have been infected and it wasn't worth the risk. I arrived at the elevator, but to my dismay it seemed many other people had the same idea. I heard a ping and the elevator doors slid open. In a split second, the large crowd of office staff pushed and shoved their way into the tiny metal box.
Wait for another elevator. Take the stairs. Squeeze into elevator with the others. Jump out the window. Fuck this, I'm suicidal.
I launched myself out of the window in the hope of reaching the ground floor more quickly. However, it seemed I forgot one important fact.
You're on the
I
4th
worked on
floor.
the 10th floor. My body hit the ground with a mighty splat.
Dun dun dun!
I died! Let me try again.
A scream coming from down the hall broke my concentration.
Is there multiple ways to win
what
this?
it was, but the
Yeah.
thought quickly passed. Probably just another hysterical secretary overreacting to a spider. Just as I started getting back to work, something else grabbed my attention. I peered out the window into the street below, and to my astonishment, saw a scene
You
of
can,
utter
fast
chaos.
forward.
How?
People fighting,
By clicking.
even killing each other for seemingly no...
Alright, I'll do the radio option this
The
time.
radio began blurting out all kinds of information. It said that a new breed of virus had been discovered, one that would change its victims into a homicidal maniac. This virus was highly contagious and spreading rapidly. Their advice was to stay where I was, and that if I were to encounter an infected person, I should try to destroy their brain. At this point, I felt myself entering a state of mild shock. It was obvious that whatever was going on was serious, and that a significant percentage of the population were going to be killed or wounded over the course of the next few days. My thoughts quickly turned to my wife. Was she okay? What if these maniacs were near our home?
This time I'm actually gonna go. I could just be a dick and stay in the office.
I knew that the phone lines would most likely be overwhelmed, so I decided not to waste time by calling.
Well, I sacrificed the other
straight
bitch, so I might as well see if my wife's okay.
Oh, technically you didn't really sacrifice that lady.
I
She was
began to make my way
dead
through
already.
a
Yeah, no, but I
series of
didn't even
corridors that
try.
lead to the elevator. On my way, I noticed a struggle out of the
Absolutely
corner of my
tried. She's
eye.
dead.
I turned to see a disfigured man frantically clawing at and biting a young woman's leg. Blood was already pouring from her multiple wounds. The woman
I ain't going
cried
to
out
help,
for
it'll
me
probably
to
just
help
get me
her.
bit.
So you're not being cold, you're being smart.
I
Same
continued
option.
down the hallway, ignoring the woman's cries for help. She would have been infected, and it wasn't worth the risk. I arrived at the elevator, but to my dismay, it seemed many other people had the same idea. I heard a ping, and the elevator doors slid open. In a split second, the large crowd of office staff pushed and shoved their way into the tiny metal box.
Not squeezing into the elevator because I know that'll end up leading to my doom.
Oh, that's like the biggest trope in zombie.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the
I
stairs.
quickly made my way down the stairs to the ground floor. Sure, I was a little out of breath, but at least I saved time and avoided a potentially lethal situation. I eventually
That's
reached
somewhere I
the
haven't been in a
ground
while,
floor
TV
and
tropes.
entered the lobby. The scene in front of me was one of extreme violence. The security team was desperately battling with a swarm of infected, and they appeared to be losing. I watched helplessly as a guard on the opposite side of the room was torn limb from limb. I noticed his
Pull my
gun
camera
lying
out.
on the floor just a few meters away from his dismembered corpse.
Let's see, run across the room and try to get the gun. Make a dash for the main exit.
They're tempting you. A gun.
Let's see, is my guy any good at a gun, or is he just a typical lazy worker?
And they're tempting you with a gun. Think about that.
Yeah.
It could be, it's a trap. Or is it? I don't know. Could be.
I'm gonna go with the third option, go through the rear exit.
I managed to slip away without any infected noticing and proceeded quickly towards the rear exit.
Yay, thanks for summarizing what I just clicked on.
I made my way through several corridors towards the back of the building. As I approached the rear entrance, I spotted a hefty padlock across the vault, making it practically impossible to open without a key. I cursed my bad luck and tried to figure out my next move. The janitor would have had the key, but reaching his office would have required going back towards the lobby.
Go to the janitor's office, get the key, charge down the door, search for a window to climb through. I'm gonna charge down the door.
I took a few steps back and several deep breaths before charging shoulder first towards the door. The impact knocked me to the floor, sending an intense pain through my right shoulder. Dazed, I stumbled to my feet and saw that the door was completely unaffected. I cursed my stupidity and set about finding another exit.
Okay. I'm not
I
stupid.
remembered that there was
I know
a
you're
small
weak.
window in the male bathroom just a few doors down the corridor.
He's an average. He works
I
at a
arrived at
desk.
the bathroom door and
Unless
pushed
he
it
lifts
open.
weights, I don't
Suddenly,
think he's
I heard a
gonna be
bestial roar coming from further
above
down
average.
the corridor. A dozen infected had spotted me and were now heading in my direction. I quickly entered the stall and spotted the window I was thinking of. However, to my dismay, it was much smaller than I had remembered. I thought that I would
Start
probably
losing some
fit,
weight, fatty.
but I knew it was going to be a very tricky maneuver.
She got spiky boobs. I'm playing Soul Calibur, fools.
Go straight through the window, hide in the cubicle and hope the infected pass before trying the window. Ooh. That makes me think if I go straight for the window, the infected are going to come in after me. Flood the bathroom before trying the... Okay, why would I flood the bathroom before trying the... I'm going to try that. What would be the benefit of that?
I grabbed a bundle of paper towels and began blocking the sinks. I turned on the taps and watched as water spilled all over the floor, creating a slick surface. Hearing the zombies approach, I immediately ran towards the window and began trying to squeeze through. The infected burst into the room and began to slip. However, this only seemed to buy me a few seconds, much less time than it took for me to actually flood the room. As I frantically tried to push through the window, one of them grabbed me and sunk his teeth into my leg. I managed to get free and escape into the street, but it was already too late. I was infected.
Dun dun dun. Hey, where's the character model thing?
Museum.
He died, he did. Oh, you can fast forward all this
Coming
shit.
from down.
I don't even know what I just clicked on. Oh, I clicked on the TV one again.
At this point, I dialed the number, but immediately got an error tone. I began to make...
Okay, now where?
I'm going to leave her alone again.
I continued down the
Now
hallway,
where?
Hold on. Gotta be careful where I click,
I
because
arrived
even if
at
I'm
the
not on them,
elevator,
it still
but to
chooses
my
shit.
dismay,
Not gonna jump out the window. I'm not gonna squeeze in the... I'm taking the stairs again.
I quickly made my way. I eventually...
Let's see. Across the room. I'm gonna take the gun
I
this time.
managed to dodge several zombies, but just as soon as I got close to the gun, I slipped on a pool of blood.
Wow.
I stumbled directly into the group of infected. I frantically tried to escape their grip, but it was hopeless.
Okay, so I just... That was,
You just died
Screams
twice,
coming from down the
Kuni.
hall broke.
Well, it's not my fault.
I told you they were tempting you with the gun.
At
Well, it
this
didn't hurt to try it.
I knew that... I began to... I continued down the hallway, ignoring the...
So, where do I
I
go?
arrived at the...
I really don't know.
Do you even have it unlocked?
Oh, I have everything unlocked in that game. Let's see. I'm gonna take the stairs again.
I eventually...
Exit. Go to your exit again.
I made my...
Go to the
I
window.
realized... I remembered that there was a small window.
Go straight to
Not
the
wanting
window.
to waste time, set about trying to squeeze through the window. A few awkward movements and a lot of pain later, I managed to force my way into the street, escaping the infected with only a few seconds to spare. I dropped from the window and landed on the pavement with a heavy thud. Looking up and down the quiet back street, I tried to decide what to do next. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that my best bet was to head to a main road and try to steal a vehicle or catch a lift. I jogged down the quiet street for a few hundred feet before stopping to catch my breath. I looked up briefly and saw a little girl wandering aimlessly in the middle of the road.
Walk up to her and see she's okay. Fuck that.
It's a trap!
I ain't falling for that one. Fuck that little girl. She can die.
The girl was most
Little Bear can
likely
get her.
infected, and therefore I decided to ignore her and continue down the street. I eventually arrived at the main road. As I suspected, the scene wasn't pretty. In every direction, I could see people either trying to fight or flee from the numerous infected. An array of dismembered corpses already littered the streets. I suddenly felt nauseous, and within a few moments I was vomiting my breakfast all over the pavement. I wiped my mouth with my sleeve and looked up to see a bus driving down the street. The number was the same as the one I usually took home. There appeared to be a lot of people on board already, but I thought I might be able to squeeze in.
Alright. Try to flag down the bus.
God damn, where is the character model thing?
I don't know. Hold on. Try to flag down the bus. Run to the middle of the road and force the bus to stop. Fuck that.
Yeah, I think we've all seen what happened in the Day of the Dawn of the Dead remake. The guy with the ambulance. Remember that? Remember that?
I know. Hold on. Alright, so I'm either going to try to flag the bus down, which the bus could be filled with zombies, or ignore the bus and continue on the road and probably run into a whole group of zombies. Okay, I'm taking my chances.
I realized that getting on the crowded bus probably wasn't a good idea. If someone on board were infected, then there would have been no escape. As I continued down the street, I noticed several groups of people. Just across the road was a group of men with rifles. They appeared to be having fun shooting the zombies rather than trying to escape. In the alley,
I'm gonna
I
get
could just
shot
about
like the
see
black
a group
guy at the end
teenage
of
boys armed with a
Night of the
variety
Dead.
of makeshift melee weapons. A few meters from where I was standing, a paramedic and an armed police officer were helping a wounded man, and as I glanced over my shoulder, I saw a group of survivors from my office building heading in the same direction. I decided that it was probably best to team up with other survivors.
Join the men with rifles. Join the teenage boys. Okay. This is gonna end to my death. If I die here, if this kills me, I'm done.
No, you're not.
What, am I have to play this till I figured out the ending?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Don't worry, the second one's way easier. And it actually has checkpoints. Thank God.
So you know if you got the right ending, right selections or not?
Yeah.
Well, see if this kills me.
While I enjoyed the relative safety the guns provided, they seemed to be attracting a lot of attention from the infected. As time went on, more and more of them advanced on our position. Eventually, the men began to run out of ammunition, and the infected quickly surrounded us. There was no escape. I dropped from the
You can
window.
fast forward. You know?
Oh, this has a checkpoint too.
Oh, it had a checkpoint?
It took me just directly to the little girl. You know what? I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see if she's
I
okay.
walked up to the girl and tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention. She suddenly spun around, let out a ghastly scream,
Knew
and
it.
vomited blood into my face. Some of it got into my eye. It wasn't long before I contracted the virus and became one of them.
See, you know what I would have done?
called out to her.
called out to her, so I can at least
See that she's a zombie. Because
I can at least survive of a clean conscience that instead of thinking, what if she wasn't infected and I left this poor little girl to her death, you know?
Let's see, I'm not going on the bus. You know what? I'm going to try to force the bus to stop.
Are you dying on purpose now?
I just want to see the different ways to die.
And actually began to speed up.
Oh, I knew it.
Barely managed to dive out of the way as the bus hurtled down the street.
Oh. He didn't die. I knew that was going to happen, but
you
didn't
die because they were going easy on you that time.
I actually expected it to just hit me.
I did too.
As I continued down the street, I noticed several groups of people. Just across the road.
Yeah, that was just that was like an okay option.
Appeared to be having fun shooting the zombies rather than trying to escape. In the alley.
Alright, so I joined the guys with rifles. That didn't work.
Where is it? My God. You sure you don't know what the character model is?
I don't know at the moment. I'd have to actually check it myself. Hold on.
I walked over to the group with the wounded man and began to help. I told the group that I thought we should try to find some transportation to get out of the city center. One of them suggested we go to the parking area a few blocks down. We quickly agreed to our strategy and made our way down the street. As we approached the car parking area, we noticed a few infected wandering idly around the entrance. There was no real way to avoid them.
Oh. Okay.
That's character creator. That doesn't do anything. That's the closest thing you'll be able to do to the model viewer that I know of. I know there's a regular model viewer, though.
I know. I'm looking for it.
Subject to try to run past them. Fighting them as a group. No. Okay, yeah, I'm going to try this one. Convince one of the others to distract
After
them.
some heated discussion, somebody from the group eventually stepped up. He began making such a noise as he could, running in circles around the infected. My plan worked and they began to follow him away from the entrance. The rest of us swiftly made our way inside and began to search for a suitable vehicle. We were so wrapped in what we were doing that we forgot about our brave volunteer. We never saw him again.
He will be
You
remembered.
guys suck. No, I'm joking.
We eventually found a few different options for vehicles in which we could make our escape. On the far side of the parking area, we found a pair of road motorbikes. Closer to us was a four-wheel drive all-terrain Jeep, a large freight truck, and a convertible sports car.
See, I'm being the smart one, and I'm taking the all-terrain Jeep.
I suggested that we take the Jeep, and the others quickly agreed. Having the ability to go off-road if necessary would be incredibly useful, especially since many roads would have been blocked with traffic, accidents, or zombies.
I'll tell you how I died the first time I played this.
We approached the Jeep and peered inside.
After you were
To
done.
our dismay, we saw a pair of infected inside, desperately clawing at the windows in an attempt to escape.
Yeah, okay, so that didn't work. Let's try another vehicle.
I made my suggestion, but
The others didn't listen, they really wanted the Jeep, and a few zombies were going to get in their way.
the others immediately flung open the doors and started trying to drag the zombies out. However, without my help, they were having serious trouble, and it seemed like they would most likely end up dead if I didn't intervene.
God.
So you actually don't want them to die. You actually want to help them.
Are you really telling me to help them?
No. I'm just curious. Are you actually looking out for others as well as yourself? Are you looking out for both yourself and others, or
They
just
headed
yourself?
towards the freight truck and didn't look back.
I was seriously asking, were you seriously thinking about helping them?
No,
climbed
actually, I was
aboard
going for
my
the freight
chosen
truck.
vehicle and sped away from the car park onto the main street.
You made the right choice.
By then, the roads
Yeah, I figured
were
I'd
littered
end up
with
dying.
bodies and car wreckages.
Anything that involves getting close to the
It was all I
zombies
could
usually
do
ends
for
up my
it.
death. I have a feeling
Everywhere
there
I
is
looked,
one in here that
I
doesn't
could
do
see
that,
only
though.
scenes of carnage. It seemed that those not already infected were fighting a losing battle. My thoughts quickly turned to my wife. I tried to tell myself that she would be okay, but that didn't stop the horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach. I knew I had to get home as soon as possible. In the distance, I could see a gas station with a few of the zombies on the forecourt. I quickly glanced down at the fuel gauge and saw that I only had about a half a tank remaining.
Fill up at the pump. Go to the attached convenience store and take supplies. Alright, I'm gonna try and fill up at the pump, because going without is just gonna leave me
Pulled
stranded.
up onto the forecourt, got out of the vehicle, and began to pull up the gas tank at the pump. However, within a few short moments, the infected began to notice me and started heading in my direction.
You're in plain
As
sight,
I
you
started to
tard!
get close, I decided that it would be best to escape while I still could. As I pulled away, I glanced down at the fuel gauge. It had barely gone up at all. I continued down the road before turning onto the main highway out of town. However, it
This is
wasn't long
frustrating.
before
Where
I
is it?
noticed a mass of vehicles blocking the road ahead. The combined sound of all the honking, shouting, and screaming was deafening. Nobody had
Single-player
kept
modes.
to their lanes, and cars were packed so closely together that not even a bicycle could squeeze through.
Training.
The blockage extended
Really?
so far down
Try it.
the road that
You
it was
never know.
literally impossible to discern what the cause was.
There should be like there might be an option for character bios and shit. Alright, hold on, I gotta reload that. Let's through. It's impossible to discern what the cause was. That'll end up killing me. That's the whole reason
Realizing that there was no point in waiting, I decided to get off the road and drive through the open field instead. At first I made good progress, and as my thoughts turned to my wife, I started driving faster and faster, determined to get home to her as quickly as possible. By the time I saw the old tree stump among the crops, it was already too late. When I awoke hours later, I realized how lucky I was to still be alive. My ride was totaled, and I wasn't much better. Several of my bones were broken, and I could barely move, let alone walk. It wasn't long before one of the infected found me, and unable to defend myself, I was slowly eaten alive.
At least there's checkpoints.
where that last checkpoint is.
I climbed aboard my chosen vehicle and sped away from the car.
Okay, so
park
what I
onto the
did
main
was
street.
good.
By then the roads were littered with bodies and
So I
car
chose the right
wreckages.
vehicle too.
It was
I'm gonna be pissed if it's an option.
I know that there's a freaking.
I know there is. I've seen it on YouTube.
I'm not filling up at the pump then. Alright, let's see what happens if I continue
I
without
decided
stopping.
not to stop for gas or supplies due to the potential danger. Half a gas tank was more than enough to get home anyway.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah, Kuni, you don't live that far away.
I continued down the road before
I don't care
turning
if anyone
onto
knows
the
by
main
now.
highway out of town. However, it wasn't long
How many
before I
days
noticed
are
a
in
mass
the
of
world?
vehicles blocking the road ahead.
They already know my face.
The combined sound of all the honking, shouting, and screaming was deafening. Nobody had kept to their lanes, and cars were packed so closely together that not even a bicycle could squeeze through. The blockage extended so far down the road that it was literally impossible to discern what the cause was.
Alright, well, taking a vehicle off-road is not going to do shit. Let's see what happens if I'm patient.
I waited for the traffic jam to clear, but it wasn't long before I realized my mistake. Other vehicles began to pile up behind me, and soon I was totally surrounded. I decided to continue on foot, scrambling over other cars and dodging between what few gaps in the traffic remained. But it wasn't long before something went horribly wrong. The infected were spotted in the distance, and in the ensuing panic, I was run over by a reversing SUV. I heard a sickening crack as the wheels rolled over my legs, and I knew that I would soon be dead. Sure enough, the infected soon found me and tore my body to shreds.
Well, we know which option I gotta choose.
Is it the only option? Literally
I
the
climbed
only
aboard
option. Wow.
So continue on the road without stopping.
I continued.
God, where the fuck is it?
Alright, I guess I just gotta turn around
I
and try
decided
another
that
route.
there was no point in waiting for the traffic to clear, and that without the Jeep, driving off the road was just too dangerous. I headed back the way I came and turned off the highway at the first exit. I soon found a safer, albeit less direct route home. As I sped down the disturbingly quiet back road, my mind began to wander. Without the distraction of imminent danger, I began to remember the horrific scenes I had witnessed just an hour ago. Images of mangled corpses flashed before my eyes, and my head began to spin. I swerved onto the wrong side of the road, just as another vehicle pulled out from a concealed entrance. I braked sharply, but it was too late to avoid a collision. Amazingly, I wasn't seriously injured, but my ride was badly damaged.
Let's see. Alright, let's try this. Steal the other driver's car.
As I walked over to the car, I realized that the driver was either unconscious or dead. I didn't care which. I opened his door, removed his seatbelt, and dragged him out of the driver's seat, not noticing the deep bite marks on his arms and neck. Before I realized he was infected, he regained consciousness and sunk his teeth into my wrist.
Wow, I can't believe this. Kuni, the guy who watches a shit ton of zombie movies, is being killed repeatedly in zombie hell.
Pretty sure you died quite a few times playing this too.
You wanna know what killed me?
What?
The gun.
I already knew going for...
It's a trap!
I already knew going for the gun would end
Well,
up
it was
killing
a
me.
trap, and you decided to fuck around and do it anyways.
Yeah. It's nice to know which ways you can die. Right.
I decided not to stop for gas. I continued. I
Route.
decided as I
Let's see, so... I'm not gonna try anything with the thing. Let's see if I carry on foot. Never a good option, but...
realized that without transport, I would have to walk the rest of the way home. Not wanting to waste any more precious time, I continued my journey on foot. After a half an hour of walking, I began to recognize my surroundings and knew that I would soon be home. There were several different routes I could take. I decided to get off the main road, as it would undoubtedly be dangerous in such a heavily populated area. I decided to follow the train line instead, since it ran not far from my house and would be totally deserted. Sure enough, I didn't see another soul. I finally arrived in my neighborhood, exhausted. I knew that my house was just a little further down the street, but the area was swarming with the infected. Most of them seemed distracted by what few survivors remained, but I knew it was only a matter of time before they noticed me. I remembered about a small alleyway nearby, one that would take me most of the way home in relative safety. I entered the alley, and as expected, it seemed totally devoid of life. However, as I walked past a large dumpster, an infected old man stepped out of the shadows and tried to grab me.
All four of these options involve contact.
Fuck! Hold on, dude.
What?
Oh, let me use your laptop.
I've already looked. There is no model viewer.
Oh, shit!
No, there isn't.
Well, how did you get it on YouTube?
Hacking?
That's...
It's all with the PC and shit.
What the fudge? They had it on Soul Calibur 2.
That was Soul Calibur 2.
Why would they get rid of that?
Because it was... I don't know. They did. I don't know.
That is fan disservice, man.
All right,
Disservice.
I'm gonna punch the guy in the face.
I punched him as hard as I possibly could, but it didn't seem to have any effect. Before I could swing again, he grabbed me and sunk his teeth deep into my neck.
Yeah, I get it. I'm dead.
So, wait. All four lead to physical contact?
Exhausted.
Let me guess, one of them's
my
run
house
past
just
him.
a little further down the street.
What?
But the
Let me guess,
area
one of
was
them's run
swarming with
past
the
him.
infected.
No.
Most of them seemed
Grab him by the neck, punch him in the chest, or grab him by the neck and push him away. Grab him in his torso and push him away. Punch him in the face and throw him over your shoulder. All four involve actually touching him.
Which one would not allow him to fight you?
I'm guessing the chest one. But I want to see what happens if I throw him over my shoulder.
I grabbed his arm and tried to throw him, but my footing was wrong, and I was barely able to lift him more than a few inches off the ground. As I held him, he took a huge bite out of my shoulder.
Knew
I
it.
continued to struggle with my attacker, but within minutes I too was one of the infected. I finally arrived.
Alright, let's push him in the
I
torso.
grabbed his shoulder and pushed him backward, narrowly escaping being bitten. I had bought myself valuable time, but it wouldn't take long for the creature to regain its balance and come at me again. I turned to run back the way I had came, only to see that another group of them had followed and were now blocking my retreat. My only hope was to try and get past the lone infected.
Oh, come on. Alright, let's see how good his aim is.
I grabbed a brick and threw it at my assailant as hard as I could. It hit him in the shoulder, which barely seemed to affect him at all. Before I could try anything else, he grabbed a hold of me and pulled me to the ground. I struggled to get free, but by then the others had caught up, and I was overwhelmed.
Okay.
I finally arrived in my neighborhood.
What?
I gave you a hint. What move could you do that would not allow him
I
to
already
bite you?
did the punch the guy in the chest, and it worked. I'm on the new one. Punch him in the torso is the one you want to do.
No. Think about it. How can someone bite you when you
I'm
have
pretty
their
sure if I go
neck?
for his neck, he's probably gonna still. It probably something stupid's gonna have him still bite me.
Like what? Puking your eyes like in 28 Days Later?
No, I just freaking aim. One of the options is throw a brick at his head. I didn't hit his head. I hit his shoulder, which means if I go for his neck, I could miss somehow and freaking not grab it right, and he could still bite my arm. All I know is grab the torso and throw away leads to a new
I
option.
grabbed his shoulder and pushed him backward. I had bought myself valuable time, but it wouldn't take long for the creature to regain.
Alright, now I'm gonna hit him in the head now.
Grabbing a brick, I waited just long enough for the infected to get close before smashing it into his face. There was a sickening crack as his jawbone fractured and blood sprayed from his mouth. My former neighbor fell to the ground, and before he could get back up, I was able to run past. I sped down the alley and back onto the street. When I looked over my shoulder, there was no sign of my pursuers. I could see my house now, just 100 feet or so away. My heart sank when I saw yet another group of infected wandering aimlessly between me and my goal. I decided I would try to sneak past the infected, using the low guarded walls, shrubs, and dust bins to hide my presence from the infected. Slowly but surely, I made my way up the street. None of them seemed to notice me until the wind changed, taking my scent straight to them. The group seemed to howl in unison before charging straight towards me. I tried to run, but soon found myself cornered. I was devoured just a few yards from my own front door.
Did you do the neck thing, though?
No, I did the chest, and that got me past him.
I'm gonna tell you right now, the neck actually works, because he can't bite you.
Well, so does the chest.
And And no, they don't do the stupid 28 days later puking.
No, I'm saying I'm pretty sure something. I figured something this did happen. All I know is the chest one still works. That's the one I'm going with.
I finally arrived in. I grabbed his. I had. Grabbing. I spit.
Alright, don't want to run past. Well, let's try running past.
I decided that my best bet was to run past the infected. After all, I would soon be safely behind my front door. I took my keys from my pocket to save time before sprinting as fast as my legs would carry me through the group. I got past it with relative ease and sped up my garden path to the front door. Panicking, I struggled to get the key into the door, knowing the infected were closing in with every second. I finally got the key in the lock and tried to push the door open, but to my horror, it only moved an inch. My wife had put a chain on and wedged a bookcase in front of the door. I tried to force through, but my pursuers had already caught up with me. I was torn to pieces on my doorstep.
Your wife's a bitch. She's smart, but she killed you.
Not on purpose.
I finally arrived.
Still killed him.
I grabbed his. I had bought. Grabbing a. I spit.
Alright, so running past them didn't do anything. Let's try to go through the neighbor's
I decided that it was too dangerous to carry on down the street. I went around the back of one of the neighbors' houses and climbed over the fence into their garden. It was tiring, but I carried on scrambling over the fences until I got to my own backyard. As I approached the house, I noticed the glass in the back door had been smashed and the door left slightly ajar. I was terrified for my wife's safety.
Oh, I know where this one's gonna lead. I can go straight indoors and find something, or if I go to the get the weapon, using that time, I spent too much time and she died. If I was there seconds earlier, that's what I would have had happen.
I realized that whoever had broken into the house could still be in there. Without a weapon, I wouldn't be able to help my wife. I headed over to the shed and checked my pockets. Luckily, I still had my keys and was able to remove the padlock and open the door. Inside, there was a wide range of tools to choose from.
Oh god, please let there be a chainsaw. First option! I'm doing it, I don't care if it gets me killed.
I picked up the chainsaw.
Chainsaw and sledgehammer are the two that I like the most.
And started up the motor. I remember how loud it was, but I didn't care. For the first time since the outbreak began, I felt powerful and in control. I left the shed and started to head over to the house.
Fell on the chainsaw.
Suddenly, I realized that the group of infected from the street had heard the roar of the engine and were making their way into my backyard. Grinning evilly, I drove the spinning teeth deep into the first infected chest.
What is this, my immortal?
Gore in all directions.
Evilly is a word.
I know, but still, when I hear those words, I'm reminded of that horrible fanfic. So what happened?
He freaking swung it all around and freaking the blood got into his eyes and mouth.
Wait.
As I approached the house,
the chainsaw was good at killing them, but it fucked him up. Alright, I'm gonna try a different weapon.
I headed over to the
oh my god, Dave!
Huh.
Her pants are see-through.
I know. Who is that?
It's Talene.
Wow.
No, my favorite Soul Calibur girl, Talene.
Same here.
She's got
the best story.
She's got see-through pants. Oh, she's got a cute butt. She's wearing a thong.
I decided to take the sledgehammer. It was heavy and hard to use, but could easily
I would
smash a
marry her
man's
if she
skull
were
in
real.
a single blow.
She'd kick my ass.
I wonder if she's gonna be in the next game.
She would kick my ass every time I refused to throw out the
My weapon
garbage.
in hand, I left the shed and walked back to my house. Before I could enter, I discovered why the back door had been left ajar. A teenage looter emerged from the house carrying my television, obviously intent on profiting from the crisis. When he saw me, he dropped the TV and pulled out a large kitchen knife. At that moment, I couldn't tell which one of us was more afraid.
I'm gonna regret this.
What?
I told the looter that I wasn't going to hurt him, and that he could take the TV and go. He didn't bother to pick it back up. Instead, he ran over to the nearby fence and climbed over into the neighbor's garden.
An act of compassion!
Nah, I thought it was gonna end up getting me killed.
Like
the looter would friggin' come after me.
I know you're not an ass guy, but you
Having
gotta
dealt with
kill
the looter, I
Whatever.
walked in through the back door. I was
Look at
relieved to finally be safely indoors, but I couldn't rest yet. Not until I was certain my wife was okay. I quickly shut the back door and turned the key. With the glass broken, it wouldn't keep out the infected long, but at least it would buy me some time.
That's gonna kill me.
I began searching the ground floor for my wife. As I came into the living room, I saw that John from next door was standing there. He had his back to me and was clearly oblivious to my presence. His shirt was covered in red stains. I decided it was best not to disturb him and carefully backed away. If he had noticed me, he certainly didn't show it. As I went to go upstairs, I noticed a note had been left for me by the front door. I recognized my wife's handwriting immediately. The note said that she couldn't wait for me any longer and that she was going to pack her bags and take the car to her parents' house in the countryside. As I read the note, my heart sank. I prayed that she would be able to make it to her parents in one piece, but knowing how hard it had been for me to get here, I couldn't help but wonder if she was still alive. When I realized I may never see her again, I began to feel tears rolling down my cheek. I pulled myself together and resolved to keep searching. I needed to make sure the house was secure before planning my next move. As I climbed the stairs, I heard an odd shuffling noise coming from my bedroom. I didn't know if it was my wife, a looter, or another of the infected.
What will you do?
Who would be polite?
I walked over to the door slowly and gently knocked as I called out to whoever was inside. My reply was a scream and a call for help. It was my wife's voice. I swung open the door and went inside. The scene that greeted me will haunt my nightmares for years to come. My beautiful wife was pinned on the floor, desperately trying to fight off one of the infected. She could barely keep the creature at bay, and if I didn't act immediately, she would surely die. I ran at the infected and kicked it in the face with all my might. It was enough to get the beast away from my wife, and I was able to quickly finish the job without the risk of hitting her by mistake.
I knew that's what would happen if I was to hit him or go for his head.
What?
Because I have a giant sledgehammer. If he's above her, and I try to hit him in
and
the
she's
head...
struggling to get him off.
Yeah, like what if she actually does get him off and I hit her right in the face?
Ow.
I should have done that option.
I was finally reunited with my wife. I dropped
Those
the
are
weapon
my
and
two
held her
favorite
as tightly
characters.
as I could.
Charlene's my favorite.
In that moment, I was happier than I
I'm
had
just saying,
ever
those are
been.
my two favorites.
Yet the feeling would not
Is
last
she your
long.
favorite
Favorite female?
fighter
After
or
she
favorite
was
girl?
okay, and she
Favorite
showed
to
me her
play
hand.
as? Yeah.
Blood dripped from
No, I
several
mean,
bite
like,
marks on her
is
fingers.
she your favorite fighter or favorite sex
I
appeal?
didn't know if she would become infected or not.
Well, I don't really
even how
have a
much
favorite
longer
sex
she
appeal
had.
in this game.
She
No, I mean,
stopped
like,
as
yeah.
I struggled to decide
No.
what to do.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. She's my favorite female character. That's what you're asking.
Oh, okay. Is she also your favorite fighter?
I guess. She's my favorite to play as. Alright, hold on.
Dude.
Oh,
What?
she got bit.
Dun dun dun.
Oh, yes.
I knew I had to do something and do it quickly. If I could stop the spread of the infection, I might just be able to save her life. We ran down to the kitchen, took a clean meat cleaver from the knife rack, and tied an improvised tourniquet around her wrist.
You did what I did!
Within seconds, it was over, and I was carefully dressing the wounds with bandages from our first aid kit.
Dude, you did what I did.
I didn't know if she would survive or not, but at least now we had hope.
I was actually on edge between that and kill her.
You avoided the suicide.
My wife and I spent some time discussing what to do
next. You
next.
commit suicide in your
We
end.
realized that we couldn't stay in the house forever, as it was
Oh my
just
God,
too
different picture in the
dangerous
background.
this close to civilization. We decided that our
isn't
best bet
Kira
was to
another
load
one of
up the
your
car
favorite
with food and
girls?
supplies, and then
Yeah,
head for
she's
her
another one of my
parents' house
favorite.
out
She's
in
my
the
second
country.
favorite to play
We made
as.
sure the house was secure, dragged the corpses
Those are the two
down
that I
to
play as the
basement,
most.
and then helped my wife
I'm
get
not talking
everything
about playing.
ready.
I'm talking about
She looked
just
pale
girls
and weak,
in the game.
but it didn't seem like she would turn.
I like Tira better in
at
this
least
third
not
game.
for a while
I
yet.
don't really. She's always a lot better in the
By
third
the
one.
time
In
everything
this game,
was
she
ready,
seems like
it was already nightfall,
really
so we
crazy
decided to
Harley
spend
Quinn.
one more night at home before hitting the road.
Well, yeah, she's been
I
a
don't
nightmare.
think either of us slept that night, but it was better than traveling in the dark. We left at dawn.
See, this is the fighting game I like, SoCal. This is where I'm at home and everyone's screwed.
So did I get the right ending?
There's actually multiple endings. If you had killed your wife, it would say you survived a few months, but then you committed suicide because you couldn't live with the grief. And it says you are a selfish person and all that crap.
Survived the day, saved your wife. So I got both of the good things.
Yeah. Okay. What isn't Taki like your third favorite or something?
No, I don't like Taki.
All right, let's go with the second game. It's a lot quicker.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
It's already 11 o'clock.
I know. All right, guys, we're gonna do number 2. Oh, I gotta get rid of that dim. Seriously, I think it's just awesome she's wearing see-through pants. If I ever get a girlfriend again, I will be in heaven if she wears see-through pants indoors. Indoors. Do-do-do. What? Oh. What? No. I don't want pop-up. So, she's okay. I know she's like your favorite to fight with, but I mean, is she also like your favorite? Female character.
Yeah, I already said that.
All right. Hey guys, Kuni's gonna play part 2. He survived the apocalypse after dying multiple times in purgatory. Now he's got to survive the post-apocalypse.
Hopefully I don't die a million
On
times.
June 29th, 2016,
louder.
our lives changed forever. A virulent man-made virus had been mysteriously released into the population, mutating the infected into ravenous, flesh-eating zombies. The outbreak had claimed untold lives, but somehow my wife and I had managed to survive. We escaped the carnage of the cities by driving deep into the countryside, hoping to find relative safety at our parents' farm. When we arrived, we were relieved, not only to find her parents still alive, but with the help of the locals, they had managed to fortify the farm.
Hooray for you.
The granary held enough grain to feed us for months, and we had plenty of ammunition. It seemed as though we could survive here almost indefinitely. All too
Months isn't
soon, we
indefinite.
realized things weren't that simple. With no one working at the local sewage treatment plant, filth had found its way into our drinking water. A disease we had all but forgotten about came back to haunt us: cholera. Without antibiotics to treat the infection, people grew weaker and weaker, and finally died. It was clear that if someone didn't go and find some medicine soon, we'd all be wiped out within a month. those still healthy enough to hold a gun decided to draw straws. Mine was the shortest.
So, are you at the options of weapons yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
Having been chosen for the mission into town, I wasted no time and started preparing immediately. I realized that even decisions that seemed unimportant at the time could make the difference between life and death later on. With that in mind, I headed to my father-in-law's wardrobe and started to think about what I should wear.
Alright.
I chose to wear the old man's combat fatigues. I hoped it would make me much harder to spot. I knew that I was heading straight into a meat grinder. Zombies still wandered the streets, devouring any living thing that crossed their path. I knew that confrontation with the infected was inevitable, and so after I got dressed, I headed straight for the armory.
Oh.
What are the options?
Shotgun is the most typical.
Shotguns, I hate. They're fucking slow.
Yeah, but their widespread makes it good for taking out a bunch of them.
Crowd control, I know. You know what else is good for crowd control? Machine gun.
Yeah, there's two of them. Automatic pistol and submachine gun. Submachine gun will give me good.
And is there just a
no
pistol?
accuracy.
Is there just
No. Shotgun, hunting rifle, automatic pistol, and submachine gun.
A hunting rifle would allow you to kill them from far away before they got too close. But they're kind of slow.
Really slow. And they have probably
Unless it's one of those automatic hunting rifles, you know what I mean?
Most hunting rifles are probably bolt action. He's another one. He's one of my favorite male characters.
Oh, Zazimo?
Yeah. Zamiel.
Zamiel. Oh, isn't that a reference to what Alucard is compared to in in Rip Von Winkle's the Casper the Huntress and okay, so it's a reference to that play.
I took the submachine gun so I could mow the bastards down.
Hey, shoot, this is one of the few games where I like almost all the fighters. Like, they all have something I like about them. There are a few, though, I don't like.
Shumpa?
No, I don't hate, I don't think I hate Shumpa.
What's interesting is some games they don't even
Having
have
armed
full
myself,
life.
I grabbed a rucksack
Like
to
just
carry
the
some
first
additional
ones.
supplies. It was imperative that I traveled light so I could complete my mission as quickly as possible.
Don't you like her?
My fellow survivors were
Selena?
counting on me getting back with
Nah, I
antibiotics
don't like
as soon
either
as
of the
possible,
people that have the
and the risk of
stats.
being unable to outrun the infected was one I wasn't willing to take.
So, what are you doing?
Let's see, take a first. Definitely taking a first aid kit.
My mission was incredibly dangerous and
Wait, wasn't
injury
there a
seemed
crowbar?
likely. I
Yeah.
took some basic medical supplies to increase my chances of getting home in one piece. I was almost ready to leave the safety of the compound. For the first time since arriving, I felt truly afraid. I knew that I may never return from this mission, but if I didn't go, what little remained of my family would be wiped out.
I actually
I
like
knew
him
my
as a
wife
final
was
boss
sick,
character.
and unless I got her the medicine
I like that
soon,
he's not actually evil.
after all we'd been through, I couldn't let it end like this.
Like, I really like that boss character.
I like Tarlene's ending, where she creates like an illusion of his son so he can go in peace.
Alright, say goodbye to your wife, just go, tell me what it is. Get some liquid courage, have a farewell drink.
Don't be stupid.
I went back inside the house, climbed the stairs to our bedroom, and slowly pushed open the door. My wife lay asleep in bed. She was pale and her body dripped with sweat. She had had a fever for some time, and I knew that without medicine she wouldn't last much longer. I leant over and kissed her gently on the forehead,
And got the
whispered,
virus.
"Goodbye, my love," and then silently left the room. As I walked back down the stairs, I swore to myself that I would find the antibiotics she needed or die trying.
fuck?
But
I hit the
I
button.
took a deep breath and stepped out of the compound into the wasteland beyond. I heard the gate swinging closed, followed by the unmistakable sound of it being securely locked behind me. I started walking and didn't look back. As I began my journey, I realized that I had quite a way to go, and I considered finding alternative transportation. I had to walk quite a long distance from the compound before I found a suitable car. It was in remarkably good condition despite the outbreak, and seemed almost brand new. When I realized the doors were locked, I decided to smash one of the windows. This turned out to be a fatal mistake. The car alarm summoned all the infected into the area, and before I could get the engine running, I was overwhelmed, pulled out of the car through the broken window and devoured.
you feel stupid right
Hey, doesn't hurt to try things.
I took a deep breath and
now. Did you know that was gonna happen, or did you do it on purpose? Like, did you do it on
I had a
purpose?
feeling I didn't think you'd have to smash the window open, so.
Okay, so you were trying to steal a car without hoping there was no alarm, though, right?
Yeah. If he's hot wiring it, then. Like, if it said steel, I would have known not to go for it. But hot wire. I didn't think so.
I decided not to waste time trying to find a working vehicle and continued toward the town on foot. After a couple of hours, I eventually came to the outskirts of town. The place had been pretty run down even before the outbreak, and I had struggled to imagine it being any worse than I remembered. I was wrong. Once the streets had been the home of petty gangs and prostitutes, but now they were littered with decaying, half-eaten corpses. The air was thick with flies, and maggots crawled and squirmed among the bodies. I took a moment to regain my composure, and then pressed on, trying not to notice what I was standing on. As I turned the corner, I saw another man standing some distance down the road. I had no idea if it was a survivor like myself, or one of the infected.
You know what I brought with myself? Crowbar. Just think about it. You can sneak through blocked buildings. Instead of,
Yeah, it says I can't even choose the crowbar option.
instead of going through alleyways and stuff.
It seemed more than likely that the other man was infected, and I wasn't about to take any chances. I aimed for the head, pulled the trigger, and then looked on with satisfaction as blood and brains sprayed out across the street. He fell to the ground and never got back up. Having dealt with the situation, I continued on down the street towards a small chemist. To my relief and surprise, the building didn't show any outward signs of having been looted. The door was closed and the glass window was still intact. I glanced around to make sure there were no infected nearby, and then tried the door. It was locked. I wasn't about to let us. As I entered the building and looked around, I realized that the antibiotics I so desperately needed would be kept in the back of the shop, so I carefully made my way towards the counter. Just in front of it, I noticed a body wearing what appeared to be a white lab coat. It was probably the chemist. From the blood stain and bullet hole in his back, I surmised that he had been shot to death.
Oh, that's bullshit.
What happened?
I only had 2 bullets on me.
Wait, what?
I didn't take extra ammunition, so I only had 2 bullets. I shot a guy in the head and I shot a lock. And it says here, shoot at him just to make sure, but you have run out of bullets. Damn it.
Who brings a submachine gun?
With only 2 bullets.
Somebody didn't check his gun before he left.
There was no option to. This
No,
is like-
I'm saying that it's not your fault. The protagonist is an effing idiot.
so the
He
only
can't even throw a brick.
every single one of these involves a crowbar.
You know what? It's not even. I think it'd be more appropriate. The title of this video: Can Kuni survive the zombie apocalypse? while playing as a retard?
Well, it looks like I'm going to search the body of a guy that appears to be dead.
I suspected that the chemist might have had something useful, so I rolled his body over and started to go through his pockets. Suddenly, his eyes opened, and he let out a hideous, inhuman scream. He was infected. Before I could react, he had sunk his teeth deep into my thigh. Though I was easily able to escape his grasp and finish the bastard off with my gun, I was not able to avoid the virus that now coursed through my veins.
The game just lied to me.
Before I too
well, he
was
smashed him in the
them.
head with it.
The game is a cheating bastard.
Fuck you.
I took a deep. I decided not to waste time trying. Having. As I walked into the back room, my heart sank. While the front of the shop had been left untouched, looters had clearly broken in at the back and taken all the medicine. Most likely, drug addicts in search of a fix. I searched everywhere, but the only thing left was a few tubes of hemorrhoid cream. I made my way back to the front of the shop and realized that my mission was far from over. I wondered if I could find any extra supplies before continuing.
Take the cash from the register.
Would have a gun and some additional rounds somewhere around the place.
You know who made
I
this
looked
character,
all over, but couldn't find anything useful.
The guy who wrote Gantz.
Disappointed, I headed back outside.
Yeah, I figured that out as soon as I saw that.
I still think my favorite's probably the one from the person that made This Ugly Yet Beautiful World.
Oh, yeah. Or, no, Sergeant Frog. It's actually Sergeant Frog. But, no, I
pressed on towards the local mall. It was the only other place in town that I knew for sure had a pharmacy.
That one chick in Gantz?
There may have been other places, but I didn't know where they were, and didn't want to risk getting eaten alive while looking for something that might not exist.
Kept, like, having...
As the mall finally came into view, I felt a strange mix of relief and horror. I was now close to my goal.
I never heard
but it seemed that the last few hundred yards would pose an almost insurmountable problem. The plaza in front of the building was infested with zombies, idly wandering in circles and occasionally bumping into each other.
Well, she's
as I wondered what to do next, the wind suddenly changed direction, carrying my scent toward the pack of infected. In near perfect unison, the infected sniffed the air and turned to stare directly at me. A split second later, they charged.
Hey, it's her cousin's costume. Her alternate costume is her cousin's costume. The color?
Yeah.
You know, she weighs like 14,000...
How? Alright, this pisses me off. I found extra ammo. I picked up a gun and extra fucking ammo. How am I out of ammo?
You wanna restart?
It's just kind of pissing me off. Like, what's the point of searching for extra ammo and finding it if I'm still gonna be out? That's the one thing this game developer did not think of.
Well, maybe he did and he's a dick.
Just waste my options. Thanks. Yeah.
I knew I didn't stand a chance against the oncoming mob of post-human cannibals, so I turned on my heels and fled as quickly as I could. The infected were surprisingly fast on their feet, but luckily they struggled to avoid the mass of abandoned vehicles and debris that covered the road. I was able to lose most of them by running around the block, and those that still followed were quite a distance behind me.
Why were you clapping?
Hey, want to see the most
disturbing thing in the world? As I returned to the plaza, I realized that not many of the zombies had chased me as I had originally thought. Unable to reach the main entrance, and with the infected now approaching from all sides, I had no choice but to run down a small side alley. There was still a single doorway into the mall, and luckily, it was still unlocked. I slammed the door shut behind me. It seemed reasonably strong, and was small enough to prevent large numbers of infected from pushing against it all at once.
Because if you do
Still,
that, lose all the
leaving it
money
as it was definitely posed a risk.
Instead, go to the
Title
press B.
screen? Go to the title screen?
Yeah. Yeah, because when you go to the title screen, it auto-saves. And you can just shut it off. Alright, let's see.
So what are you doing now?
I'm inside of the mall, and I gotta figure out a way to shut the door. Lock the door with the bolts, try to find something to barricade it with. Oh, leave it unlocked as an emergency escape route. That's so tempting. The bug just wrote my nose. Yeah, I know.
See, zombie apocalypse is not as simple as people think it is.
Rule 34, always have an escape route. I don't know. I don't remember what the rule was from Zombieland.
I know. And remember, one of them was never play a hero, and then later on it's like sometimes you have to break the rules.
You can actually find a list of all of the rules, even though they weren't all stated. Okay, I'm gonna lock and barricade.
I closed the bolts on the door and then quickly looked around for something to barricade it. Luckily, there was some old tables and chairs nearby, which I was easily able to wedge in front of the entrance. No one would be getting in or out this way anytime soon.
Turn around. Rawr! 30 of them.
Now that I was reasonably sure that the infected wouldn't be getting into the building the same way I did, my attention turned to my new surroundings. I was in a long hallway with several storage rooms on either side. From the vague odor of damp and chemicals, I realized this was obviously some kind of basement used primarily by the cleaning staff. I could see a stairwell leading up to the main building at the end of the hall.
I don't see much issue with the game.
It's usually exploits and stuff. Where people will be using a single combination over and over. Like, it's usually for multiplayer purposes.
Basically, they're doing how I beat arcade mode.
Yeah, where someone will just sit there. Like, there's some things where they can just lock guy in the corner and go boom, 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 boom.
That happened to me yesterday, actually. I was at some guy's house playing Mortal Kombat. He kept locking me in the corner.
Fuck that.
You know, taken out of context, you know, like if somebody just walked in on that conversation and did not hear the part video game,
I carefully
it
explored
would sound
the
like I was
various
being
side
raped.
rooms, making sure that none of the infected had made a home here. Fortunately, this part of the building was empty, but I soon realized that some of the rooms posed a serious problem for security. Several of the windows had been smashed in the chaos following the outbreak. Since I didn't have the time or resources to block up every one, I instead closed all the interior doors and wedged chairs under the handles. I climbed the flight of stairs to the ground floor and then headed through a small doorway into the main building.
Go away, bug.
The mall was eerily quiet,
Me too.
and despite my best efforts to keep a low profile, every footstep seemed to echo throughout the entire building. The shutters on most stores had been closed, presumably in an attempt to keep the infected from roaming freely. Frequent bloodstains were an ever-present reminder of how little the shopkeepers had achieved. A sickening feeling in my gut told me this place had been the scene of a terrible massacre. As I slowly made my way to the central square, I recalled that the pharmacy was up on the second floor. I could see no signs of life, human or otherwise, and so decided to ascend the nearest escalator and secure the medicine the folks back at the farm so desperately needed. Before I could reach it, the silence was broken by a tremendous bang, swiftly followed by something whizzing an inch past my head. Someone had taken a shot at me.
I'm not a BAMO!
Well, maybe it's a person.
Of course it's a person. The guy just tried shooting at me.
The zombies could learn! Remember Land of the Dead? They're learning!
I know, but I'm just saying, it's pissed that I grabbed ammo twice and still only 2 shots and then submachine gun.
Yeah, you could log on to Newgrounds.
I called out, hoping to reason with whoever was shooting at me. But before I could finish the sentence, several more rounds had been fired and 2 of them
Why
hit
did
me
you
in the
walk
head.
out?
I was dead before my body hit the ground.
When
He called out.
Oh.
Which, if you're behind cover, it'd be like, hey, stop!
Wait. It didn't say walk out and call out. It just
No,
said
it
call
just
out.
said try talking to him. It said he called out.
So he just walk out like an idiot. Okay, that's not your fault. That's theirs.
It didn't even say I walked out. It said I called out, which means I'm hiding behind something. I'm like, hey, can you stop that? And yet the guy still comes up to me and starts shooting me.
Wow.
I climbed the flight of stairs to the ground floor and then headed through a small doorway into the main building. The mall was eerily quiet.
Alright, well, at least I'm right where I left off.
I immediately dove for the nearest pillar as several more bullets were fired. Amazingly, I wasn't hit.
This time.
The pillar offered temporary respite from my assailants, but it would only be a matter of time before they outflanked me. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them maneuvering on the floor above. I had to act fast if I was to have any chance of survival.
Try to negotiate.
I realized that they had me totally pinned down, and that my chances of surviving a firefight were slim. My only hope was to try and convince them to let me live. I cried, "I'm not infected," as loud as I could. There was a pause, followed by a voice full of fear and doubt. "Prove it." He ordered me to put my gun on the ground and step slowly out from behind the pillar with my hands up. I could see no alternative, and so I reluctantly did what I was told.
Aw, there should have been an option. Do as you're told, or... I don't know.
As I stood defenseless in the open, I explained that I hadn't been bitten, and that I meant them no harm. The survivors whispered among themselves for a moment, before one of them asked me to take off my clothes so they could see for themselves. I undressed, and a man armed with a shotgun came down to inspect me. Finally satisfied that I wasn't about to eat them, the man asked me why I was here. I decided it was best if I told the survivors the truth from the beginning. They'd probably find out sooner or later anyway. As I put my clothes back on and picked up my equipment, I explained all about the fortified farm, the disease that plagued my family, and my quest for antibiotics. They seemed impressed by my bravery and allowed me to join them on the second floor. As I climbed the escalator, I realized just how wise my decision to surrender had been. There were at least 20 survivors in the building, with over half of them armed with shotguns or rifles. The rest had an assortment of vicious-looking melee weapons. As soon as I reached the top, I was directed toward their leader, a tall and muscular African-American who introduced himself as Ox. Ox told me that if I wanted his help and protection, or at least to be allowed to roam his mall freely, I had to earn it. Apparently there was no longer any power in the mall, and he wanted someone to head down to the basement and turn on the generator. The last man he sent never came back.
So you want me to go? Oh, you do it, Ox. Yeah.
I told him I'd be happy to help, but that I desperately needed some more equipment if I was going to survive. He grudgingly agreed and got one of his lackeys to hand over some ammo. I was then informed that
Watch,
I'd
I bet
be
you it's still
taking
going to say I'm out of
mechanic named
ammo.
Smith along with me.
That's the third time
partly
I've gotten
to fix
ammo.
the generator if it needed it, and partly to make sure I didn't try anything stupid. Smith and I went back down the escalator and through the door I had originally come through to the stairwell. We headed back down, and then Smith pointed out another doorway hidden under the stairs.
I was thinking a Doctor Who reference.
Oh. You know what I find annoying? How many people actually think John Smith and Pocahontas hooked up? They didn't.
No, if you've ever seen the sequel, she died after he did. He died on the way to America, and she went to go to America to honor him, and she died of some kind of disease.
Well, yeah, Native Americans weren't used to our white people diseases yet.
Yeah, so she died, I think, a month after coming to America. It was a very fucked up movie. Nothing like the cartoon that we saw as kids. Fucker!
Smash that fucker.
It's hard to get it. It's a fucking mosquito. Alright, hold on. This time I went down to blah 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 blah. Another doorway hidden stairs. I hadn't noticed before.
Discretion is the better part of valor, so I let Smith take the lead. If this place was as dangerous as Ox made out, I didn't want to be at the front.
Yeah, they're gonna sneak up behind us. Watch.
Knowing
On
this
the
guy,
other
he
side of
probably
the
would
door,
do
it was
that.
pitch black. If there were any windows, they were small, and the curtains or blinds were closed. We listened carefully for any signs of the infected, but heard nothing.
Not opening the curtains. That's just gonna lead to hundreds of zombies looking at me.
We
You'd
weren't
be
about
Shaun
to
of the
proceed
Dead.
without a
Are you
light
still out
source,
there?
but luckily
Looks
Smith
out there.
had a few matches on him.
Yeah.
We lit one and slowly made our way into the room. The match didn't offer much illumination, but it was enough to make our way to the generator without making any undue noise.
Any what?
We reached the generator. Smith promptly pulled a lever and pressed a few buttons. Apparently getting the thing up and running was as simple as that, because it immediately sprang to life. The lights in the room flashed and came on, and just in time. Our activities had disturbed a small group of infected who had been lurking in a side room, and they were now rushing toward us. I opened fire and was easily able to gun the bastards down. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned to Smith, but to my horror he was lying on the floor, bleeding heavily. In the confusion I had accidentally shot him in the leg.
Okay, that's not your fault. Your character's just an effing retard. It's official. Your character's a retard.
I knew Smith didn't have a lot of time, so I quickly removed the first aid kit from my backpack and got to work. I used a tourniquet to staunch the bleeding and then bandaged the wound. It wasn't much, but it was the best I could do. I helped him to his feet, and we headed back to the group. When we reached the stairwell, we were greeted by a terrifying noise. All the gunfire and the bright lights of the mall had attracted a large group of infected who were trying to get in any way they could. Luckily, I had securely barricaded this area when I first entered the building. It wouldn't hold them for long, but it brought us enough time to get back to the group. By the time we got back to the group, they were already celebrating. Now the power was back on and they were focused on making the most of it while it lasted. Several had gotten one of the coffee shops up and running and were busy preparing hot food and drinks.
One of them.
Others were setting up a games console to entertain themselves while not on guard duty. Knowing about the threat from downstairs, it wasn't particularly reassuring. Smith had lost a lot of blood and was barely conscious when we arrived. Once I told him he had been shot, not bitten, Ox ordered some of the few women among the survivors to take care of him.
Sexist! It's women's job to take care of you being sexist! Yeah, I'm joking.
There was no time to relax. The infected would be inside very soon, and if we weren't prepared, we'd be overrun in minutes. Before I could even finish
I love how they
explaining
mentioned
the
the game
situation,
console.
Ox was
Because I'm
barking
playing a
orders at
game
his
right
men,
now.
getting them into the best position to deal with the threat. They were only just in time.
You know how much longer this is?
Suddenly, the basement door burst open, and a seemingly unstoppable horde of infected zombies charged through. The first wave was
You're actually
gunned down
almost done.
before they reached the escalator, but more and more of them just kept on coming. Every gun in the building was blazing, while survivors armed with clubs and axes struggled to keep the tide of monsters from climbing the stairs. I had no idea if we'd be able to fight them off or not. I knew there was no way we'd be able to fight off the infected horde. My thoughts turned immediately towards saving myself. I remembered that there was a fire escape on the 3rd floor which would take me to the roof of the multi-story car park. While the others fought for their lives, I ran upstairs, out the door, and to the relative safety of the roof.
Funny, I got him while he was in normal form.
I stepped out into the open air and breathed a sigh of relief. I was on the top level of a multi-story car park which seemed to be blessedly free of zombies. There were also plenty of parked cars in relatively good condition, perfect for a swift and safe ride home.
It's kind of funny how it says that there's no one, it was empty, yet there's pictures of cars and zombies everywhere.
Expecting it to be one of the infected. To my relief and surprise, it was a handful of survivors who had managed to escape the carnage downstairs. Before I could meet up with them, something leaped at me from the shadows, knocking my gun from my hands and nearly pushing me to the floor. I regained my balance just in time to defend myself from the creature's next assault.
You punch it in the face. That worked so much yesterday.
3 months ago.
Shut up.
What was it? How many months ago was this?
I don't know.
Way later?
Alright, so there's two options. I'm not punching it in the face. I learned my lesson. I can grab it in the neck and push it over the railings, or knee it in the groin. It's a zombie. I don't think it's gonna...
Yeah, I don't think it feels...
So I'm gonna grab it by the neck.
As the zombie ran forward, I grabbed it by the neck with both hands. Realizing he'd be unable to bite me, I pushed him back with all my might, forcing him toward the railings. It took every ounce of strength that I had remaining, but I managed to shove the infected bastard over the edge. A few seconds later, I heard a sickening splat as his body hit the ground. Now that the immediate danger had been dealt with, I had to decide how best to get back to the ground floor. As I picked up my gun, I took another look around. There were plenty of parked cars that I could steal, and the other survivors had already begun hot wiring an SUV.
Shao Kahn's getting his ass kicked.
I decided that my best bet was to join up with the other survivors. They seemed pleased to see another living human, and were totally overjoyed when I told them I had somewhere safe to go. Since I was the only one who knew the way, they let me drive. As we made our way down through the car park, we realized just how fortunate we had been. The place was crawling with infected, and there was no way we could have escaped on foot. I sped out of the car park, breaking through the wooden barrier and skidding out onto the main road. I chose the most direct route I could think of, back toward the compound, and drove as fast as I could. I didn't get far, though. Not more than 2 blocks down the street, I came across the remains of a serious traffic accident. Several vehicles blockaded the road.
So what are your options?
Shunt them out of the way.
That worked so well, and 28 days later... Oh, wait.
I couldn't see how we would get any further in the car, so we resolved to complete our journey on foot. The others seemed reluctant to leave the vehicle, but without somewhere to go, they had no reason to drive off on their own. We climbed over the crashed cars and began the long walk home. We didn't get far. A few blocks down the road, we encountered a massive crowd of the infected, and though we tried to run, we were too exhausted to escape our pursuers. One by one, we were run down and ripped to shreds.
Oops, did I do that?
What?
No, did you take my advice?
I stepped out into the open air and breathed a sigh.
You took my advice.
What advice?
Don't shunt the cars out of the way.
As the zombie
Yeah,
ran
I knew
forward,
not to do that.
I grabbed it by the neck with both hands. Now that I decided... I sped it. It was risky, but I had to clear a path somehow. I jumped out of the car and began to push the other vehicles out of the way. Luckily, the previous owners had not bothered to put the brakes on before abandoning their vehicles, so it was relatively easy to roll them out of the way. Once I had cleared a path, I jumped back inside and drove off. As I looked down the road ahead of me, I realized that making my escape might not be as easy as I first thought. A huge mob of infected assembled on the street ahead.
What?
Accelerate and run the bastards over.
Oh, you are so tempted, aren't you?
I put my foot on the gas and accelerated directly into the
I don't care if
crowd.
it kills me.
The first few bodies I hit bounced off the windshield and rolled clean over the vehicle, leaving only a few large cracks and blood splats as evidence of their demise. As I mowed down more and more of them, I began to lose speed dramatically. Body parts began to get clogged around the wheel arches, and the tires lost traction in the blood and gore. Soon the vehicle was practically at a standstill, in the middle of a seemingly endless sea of infected. The creatures that had avoided serious injuries now began hammering on the windows, which soon gave way. I was grabbed by countless pairs of claw-like hands and dragged out of the vehicle. I had no chance.
You're almost done, actually.
I stepped out into the open. As the sun... Now... I sped it. As I looked... I wasn't going to risk driving through a ravenous horde of the infected unnecessarily. I turned off down a small back road and took another route back to the compound. It was a little more time-consuming, but a lot less suicidal. I finally made it out of the town and back to the countryside. The sun was setting in the distance behind me. I had been through a lot that day and was glad that I would soon be reunited with my loving wife. Just when I thought I was out of danger, the engine began to make strange clunking noises. I prayed that it would last until I got home, but God didn't seem to be listening. I popped open the hood and took a look at the engine. I tried in vain to discover the problem, but I was no mechanic, and without proper tools, and with the light failing, I didn't have much hope of fixing it, even if I did know what was wrong. Just as I was about to give up, I heard a strange rustling sound coming from the nearby bushes. I took a step back and readied my gun just in time to see an infected farmhand burst out of the shrubbery. I pulled the trigger. Unfortunately, I was completely out of ammo.
What the fudge?
A former farm worker tore into my neck with his razor-sharp teeth and ripped out my windpipe.
3 times I picked up ammo before this scene. All of it, I'm out of ammo. So, let's see. I grabbed a submachine gun in the beginning of my journey and a first aid kit. Okay, I didn't take the extra ammo, but apparently 3 more stashes of ammo and I still only had 2 bullets. What, did I drop all the ammo the second after picking it up?
Yes.
Jesus.
I stepped out into the open air. I sped.
It doesn't even mention that I'm with the other survivors.
Yeah, what the hell are they doing? Do they have no guns?
I know, it's like,
Do they have no melee weapons?
I joined the other survivors, and I'm the only person that seems to be here after I joined them.
Actually, I don't know if you missed it or not, but there was an option where this one lady, depending on what actions you take in the mall, you can find this one lady who's being killed, being killed by a zombie. You can kill her, and put her out of her misery, or B, kill the zombie, or just run past. Or you could help it. That's obviously, you're gonna get killed.
Yeah, I didn't run into a lady.
Huh?
I didn't run into no lady.
No, it wasn't.
I wasn't going.
It's just some lady.
I finally
didn't run
made it
into
out
no
of the
lady.
town and back to the
I said
country.
no
I
lady.
saying, oh.
The
I
sun
can
was
understand how you
setting.
heard that. Fuckers! There's like 18 of these fucking things.
What are they, fruit flies?
They're mosquitoes.
Oh, wow.
Remember, my window's completely open. There's no screen. Alright?
I knew I had no hope of fixing the problem, and it was far too dangerous to waste time trying. The compound was only an hour's walk or so away, so I abandoned the vehicle and resolved to carry on foot. long and terrifying walk through the gloom of twilight, I finally arrived at my father-in-law's compound. I was mentally and physically exhausted and wanted nothing more than to crawl into bed, cuddle up to my wife, and fall into a deep sleep. I was expecting a far warmer welcome than I received. Despite my heroic efforts on their behalf, the guards wisely insisted that my companions and I prove we hadn't been bitten before being allowed in.
You got the medicine.
Once more I had to strip down to my skin to show that I would remain among the living.
Never found
With the
it.
formalities over and done with, we were finally allowed inside. As soon as the gates were safely closed behind me, my father-in-law ran out from the farmhouse and uncharacteristically gave me a hug. Then he asked me about the medicine.
Oh, what do I press for smoke?
For smoke?
Yeah. It's downing back.
It's back. Remember, this is back over here.
And down.
Yeah.
Dude, 96% damage.
Wow, that's all 4 combatants.
No. We never fought Jade.
Oh.
I can never do that. It's like impossible.
I fell to my knees and began to sob. Everything I had been through was for nothing. I had returned empty-handed. I had failed everyone. My father-in-law, my friends, my wife, and myself. Over the course of the next few days, our suffering steadily grew. As more and more of us fell ill, people started dying. We had no hope, and I was to blame. One morning, I realized that I couldn't live life like this anymore. I went into the armory, took a pistol from the weapons rack, and hid it in my jacket pocket. I walked back to my bedroom, kissed my wife goodbye one last time, and then shot her. Once I was sure she was dead, I turned the gun on myself.
You got the worst ending.
Oh well.
If you gotten the medicine, basically it's blah blah blah, everybody lived happily ever after. And all the zombies died off of starvation eventually. You know what's the ending I got for the first game, the first time I played it? Suicide ending. You know what's the ending I got first time I played this? Not the one you got! Alright. So...
Goodbye, everybody.
Apparently Kuni is no better at surviving zombies than I am. Even though he watches way more than I do.
I've yet to watch Walking Dead, though.
Oh man, this is a... dude.
Yeah. Alright, goodbye.
Bye.